Okay, day 2 of Mishlei 1531. Ozen shamas tochachas chaim b'kerev chachamim talin. So we translated it as an ear that listens to the rebuke of life or to life's rebuke. Among the wise, it will either lodge, that's probably the most literal translation, dwell, abide, or persist. And the persist, I think, was from the Metzudas David, who said, inyan hasmada. Okay, now, before we even go over the questions, I just want, like I usually do, I look at the meforshim after we do this. So I saw an interesting Ibn Kaspi. I don't know why Ibn Kaspi has 2 pirushim on Mishlei. I don't know what the difference is. It's not like one is longer, one is shorter. So he says like this. I'm reading this now because this is a grammatical one. Ozen shema'as. So I'm gonna read it and translate it, and then you tell me what you think he's saying and like what he's doing. Ozen shema'as. Hine shema'as bekan murkeves harkavas tanai. Now I don't know the grammatical terms for this, but I know what he's getting at. That shema'as here is being stated as a qualification, okay? Smo Reuven ha-Ivri, like Reuben the Israelite, okay? Ve'im b'zeh pasuk rak gzer achas, and there is only one clause in this pasuk. Ki amro ozen shamas tochachas chaim hu hanose ve'amru b'kerv chachamim talin hu hanasu. And that the statement, an ear that listens to the rebuke of life, is the subject, and b'kerev chachamim talin is the predicate. Ve'ein kain pasuk to avos Hashem machshavos ra utahorim imrei noam. And this is not like the pasuk, an abomination to Hashem is thoughts of evil, and statements of pleasantness are pure. Shekadim zachara, which we mentioned earlier, uzachor zeh. Remember this. Yeah.
He's saying there aren't 2 halves, it's just one.
So he's not saying, well, okay, you could.
The opposite. It's not like
okay, so definitely he's precluding opposites, correct? I think he's saying something a little bit just more universal, like just like in other words, what reading of the pasuk is he steering us away from? How does he not want us to read the pasuk?
Like Chacham Talin, meaning the people who are amongst the Chachamim are ones who have Ozen Shamas.
Oh, interesting. That is also true. That is also true, right? Because he's calling Ozen Shamas as the subject.
Right.
And okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, I got to think how to reconcile that with the way I took it. Anyone else?
So I missed like the last part.
He just says it's not like a pasuk that we had earlier, which actually we should see what he said earlier. 15. Did he even comment on it? No, he didn't comment grammatically. It's not like this pasuk to avos Hashem machshavos ra utahorim imrei noam. So there's 2 subjects and predicates, right? To avos Hashem, sorry, machshavos ra are to avos Hashem, and imrei noam are tahorim.
So you're saying this is like one.
This is a subject in the first half, predicate in the second half.
Please explain what do you mean by predicate?
Yeah, so if you say like you're just saying grammatically what?
Because then he's saying what, that the ear is lodging with the chachamim?
Yeah. Like the ear that listens to chachas chaim will lodge with the b'kerev chachamim. Yeah.
But he's not saying that it's caused, but it's just describing the nature of those internals that it lodges. That's
also true. So I'll just throw out what I think he's saying. Okay, when he says it's gezerah achas as opposed to 2 clauses, as opposed to 2 independent clauses. So it's not saying an ear listens to the chachas chaim and dwells in among the chachamim. Now I tried to get this resolved before shiur. Isaac told me he can't make it because on Friday he says a charusa. Oh, he did respond right now. Okay, earlier, I don't know if you remember, earlier Isaac threw out this, it's an ABC pasuk, but what he meant by that is he said that maybe it's saying that there is a certain kind of ear and there are 2 manifestations of it, which is that it's Shemas Tochachas Chaim and it's B'kerev Chachamim Talin. And I think that's what he's saying that it's not saying. I think what you guys are saying is also true, but the reason why I was like encouraged when I saw this is like, it's always nice when, I'm not about dikduk, but he is, and it's nice when like, people who know dikduk like tell you that you're reading it wrong, because otherwise you're just, what am I going to do? Yeah.
And it also affects the idea also. I mean,
yeah, right. Yeah. And I think most of us did read it as subject predicate, but I think what you were saying about, or someone was saying about how the subject is not the second half, right? Yeah. I think that also, again, we don't have to take it that way, but that's just something to consider. Okay. Going on to our questions now, to review our questions and the approaches. Our questions were, what is the subject, not subject predicate, but what's the topic of this pasuk? What is implied by the subject being ozen, meaning a part of the anatomy rather than the person himself? Alternatively, why not lev or some other part of the anatomy? what does shoma'as mean in this context? Does it mean listen, understand, or heed? I read a really interesting comment from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs that I just want to throw out here. He pointed out, and it's hard to, there's a certain kind of etymological explanation, or not etymological, there's a certain type of explanation of the Hebrew language where you don't know if it's drush or if it's like pshat. So he said, in Hebrew, then, shomea it can mean to listen, it can mean to understand, or it can mean to obey. So he said, it is interesting that in a religion of laws, there is no way to say the word obey as its own word. The only word for obey also means receiving knowledge and understanding. And he said it's so much so that modern Hebrew needed to coin a new term from Aramaic for obey, which apparently is litzayet. Okay, so like in other words, because his message, what he said in Judaism, there's no such thing as blind obedience. There's only obedience that is inherently connected to receiving knowledge and understanding knowledge, which is a good drasha, if anything.
Obey and obey.
So nase or nishma there must mean to understand. I think that's the plain shot, right? It's like we would do first and then we will understand. But it's, in other words, as a concept, like there's no separate category of like blind obedience. Yeah, Moshe?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, so why did I think of that? Oh, because we were asking, what does shema'at mean here? All right. 5, what is tochachas chaim? In what sense does chaim qualify tochacha? 5, who is giving the tochacha? Is it the chachamim? Is it chaim itself, or is it some third party? What does talin mean? What does bekerev chachamim mean? What is the definition of chachamim in this context? What's the relationship between the two halves? Is the first half a cause of the second half? Or is the second half identifying or diagnosing the quality in the first half? Or is there a quality in a person that results in two things? I'm not going to cross it out, but even Cosby will cross it out. What kind of person is a bal ozen shamas? If he's not a chacham, maybe he is a chacham, but if he's not, who's the intended audience? What's the practical application? Okay, so quick review of our ideas, and then we'll open the floor for other additions. So we had Zach's idea, which is that this is about cognitive dissonance, that the default inclination when you hear tochacha is something that is pointing out that you're making some wrong decision or you have some quality that needs to be changed. And it is unpleasant because no one likes to know that they are not living the right way. So you're going, the type of, the quality that Mishlei is praising here is that the ability to persist among chachamim who are giving you tochacha despite the cognitive dissonance. And then that is going to lead to you becoming a chacham, or that's going to lead to chaim. I forgot which way Zach was saying it. You're going to reap the long-term benefits of living among chachamim is my summary, but I think you could go either way, right? Yeah, so that's a good idea. Okay, now you'll notice I crossed out, I was thinking about it some more, Moshe and Isaiah's idea. Both of them were talking about learning from circumstances. I just don't think that ozen fits with that. So I think that is an idea we see in Mishlei, but I don't think ozen would fit because I think ozen needs to be hearing something. Isaac said Chachamim are selective about who they hang out with. The pasuk is saying that the bar for a long-term relationship is having an ozen shamas tochachas chaim. If you're someone who's open to receiving tochacha, we're going to come back to that with Rabbeinu Yonah in a second. Joshua said tochachas chaim is Torah. If you listen to that, you become wise. So I didn't like it yesterday because it was too generic, and I saw that nobody says it, which I was kind of surprised about. So that's, again, not a disproof, but it really would need to be developed here. Ariel said the audience is someone who wants to learn how to develop an ear like that. And the way to do it is by hanging out with chachamim. So it's causal in the other direction, that an ozen shoma tochachas chaim is the one that dwells among chachamim, meaning that's how you're going to cultivate that ear. Right? Yeah, my only critique of that, and it's not a foolproof critique, is talin is will dwell. So if anything, I think it's going to be that if you have an ozen shamas tochachas chaim, then you will dwell among chachamim. Otherwise, if it wanted to say your way, it would say, I don't know how do you say dwelling or lodging in the present tense or in the imperfect? It would say something like ozen, an ear that dwells among chachamim will hear the tochachas chaim. In other words, that's what you were saying. But I'm saying that the pasuk does not say tishma in the future, right? It's saying the ear that does this will talin with chachamim.
At the same time, you could.
Well, I just want to make sure Ariel understands. Yeah.
So it's future.
Future tense for the second one, yeah. And you were, if I was understanding you correctly, you're saying that the person who dwells among the Chachamim will develop this kind of ear.
What can I say about grammar again of a future tense?
Yeah, I don't think it helps us here. I don't think that just shows that Talin is more expansive. But yeah, now Zach, I think, wants to say to you. Yeah, Zach.
Well, it's just there is a way there's a format of saying Ariel's point in this structure, which is look at this, like it's like kind of like people who want to tell you to wake up every day at 5 a.m. Like look at all the millionaires, they wake up at 5 a.m.
Right.
You know, like look at all the people who listen to Tochacha, they live amongst the Chachamim.
Okay, yeah. You could read it that way. I'm not saying an absolute refutation, which is why I didn't cross it off. I'm just saying that it's not mashma to me that way.
But okay, so just one more time for feedback, just so I can understand it clearly.
Yeah, is that you wanted to say that if you dwell among Chachamim, then you will get this ear.
If you dwell amongst the Chachamim,
you will develop an ozen shema tochachas chaim. But what this pasuk is saying is, it's not saying you will hear tochachas chaim. It's saying if an ozen that is doing this now will dwell among Chachamim. So the causal relationship is the other way.
The ozen who's doing this now.
Yeah. If you have more questions, we'll talk about it later. I don't want to dwell on this. Moshe Rosenthal at the end said, one who wants to understand tochachas chaim. So I like this move that Moshe made, which is that, okay, you gotta go. All right. Is that no longer dwelling in the there's stam tochacha, which is about a particular, and then there's tochachas chaim, which is like the lifestyle of listening to tochacha or seeking tochacha, whatever. So then you're going to need to be among the chachamim to learn in all areas. In other words, a person can rely on, if there are chachamim in his life, you could rely on the fact that the chacham will give you tochacha in particulars, but you cannot depend on the fact that you'll develop a quality of being someone who has got like surround sound tochacha. You know, for that you need to dwell among chachamim. So that was a good idea also. Okay, any other original ideas? If not, we're gonna go. We've got a lot of meforshim lined up here. A lot of good ones I found. All right, so let's start with Rabbeinu Yonah, okay, which is in the packet. And this I mentioned is what Rabbi Moskowitz really liked, and I think this is what Isaac is saying. Not the Isaac who just walked in. Okay. Ozen Shamas Tochachas Chaim Uba HaMikra Elyon Hakdama Lazeh. So the pasuk beforehand is an introduction to this. Funny, he does not say the pasuk right above this. Oh, sorry, no, he does say, yeah. So the pasuk right above this was Ma'or Einayim Yisamach Lev Shemua Tova Tadashin Atzen. That which illuminates the eyes makes the mind rejoice, or the heart rejoice. A good hearing, a good thing that is heard, will fatten the bone. Kasher ba leiv sameach yetiv panim. Just like it says, a happy heart will improve a countenance. Hakdama lasher achar, which is a preface to the one after it. Leiv navin yivakish dad. Okay, that's just a structural thing. Okay, b'kerev chachamim talim. This is the idea. Kasher naos v'roy lemaskilin b'chachma lishul lahashiv l'sheves b'kerev chachamim. Okay, I think I could translate this as, just as it is pleasant and proper for those who comprehend chachma to ask and to answer, to sit among the chachamim. Okay, in other words, people who are asking and answering questions, people who are, I'm not sure which way it's going, people who are maskilim will sit among the chachamim to ask and answer questions. Okay, just as that is true. Kain ro'oi lasheves b'socham mish yesh la'ozen shamas tochachas chaim. So too, it is proper to sit among them someone who has an ear that listens to tochachas chaim. Ki chachamim chafetzim usmechim b'chavraso, because the chachamim desire or delight and rejoice in his friendship. V'gamin lo yerchav lo libo lahasik al chachma, even if his mind is not abstract enough to grasp chachma. Nivchar v'nichbad be'einehem. It is nivchar here, I mean, means choice, but it means like it's good, right? It's a preferable thing and exalted in their eyes. Achrei shiyaskil b'divrei tochachosam, because he comprehends the words, or he endeavors to comprehend the words of their tochacha, and v'chavitz l'shamam, and desires to hear them. He will reach a very high level through this. Again, he connects it to the next passage. So in other words, in English, there are two groups of people who sit among the chachamim. Okay, there are people who are maskilim, who are asking questions and getting answers, and who have Lev Rachav, right, which means many things in different contexts, but I think often it means abstract mind. Okay, like Rambam says about the Havayos Dabai Varava that Balev Rachu Balev Katzar. I think he says that there. Am I imagining this, Rambam? Hold on. Yeah, okay. I just want to see this here. He says, unlike Masim Rakav and Masim Brachis, this is in 4. Oops. For the record, I was opening the English to show that it was a bad translation. Yeah, that was why I was open. Yeah. Bal Lev Rachav Ubal Kasa, right? So that means an abstract mind, or abstract like high capacity mind. So there's 2 people who sit among Chachamim, those who have abstract minds who are there for the Chachma, like the whatever you want to say the Chachma is, and then there are people who are there who are not on the level to get that type of Chachma, and they may not be such abstract thinkers, but they like they want to seek out the Tochacha of life, and the Chachamim enjoy their company. Okay, and that's why the Chachamim will have them there. Okay, and this is why Rabbeinu Yonah would characterize this as the Chacham Club. How do you get into the Chacham Club? Well, if you're a Chacham or an aspiring Chacham, you're definitely in. But also, if you're just someone who the way Rabbeinu Yonah would say, just someone who learns Mishlei, then you're in the Chachamim Club. And this is of great comfort to people such as myself, who I gave the Brisker thing a try for a good 7 years. It was nice. It was good, and I definitely developed in it. But that's not where my heart is. My heart is in other areas, and so they let me be in this yeshiva. So that's good. I consider among Chachamim. Even though my mind's not as abstract. Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah. Why does he say nivchar v'nichbad be'einehem? Is he saying like the Chachamim?
In the eyes of the Chachamim. Yeah.
So the benefit is that the Chachamim are not going to like
right.
it?
So what we need to answer here is what exactly is the idea, right? In other words, what is he saying? What's the Havamina is clear, right? The Havamina is academics only like hanging out with other academics, right? To put it bluntly, right? But so why do the Chachamim? What do they get out of him?
And also, what do you get out of them if you don't understand what they're saying?
Right. So
are they giving you tochacha?
Right. So I think that is I think they are giving you tochacha. That's why he says right. You're listening to their tochacha, right?
So they advise you in the middle of the discussion.
Right. And you want to listen to them. Well, I mean, I know one reason why the Chachamim might like you is, actually, I'll open the floor first. Yeah, what do you think? What do they get out of this?
But I'm sorry, is it the Chacham who gives the rebuke, but they let other people come in?
Yeah, the people who they like hanging out with are the people who might not be on the level to engage in that type of chachma, but they are people who listen to Tochachas Chaim.
They're aspiring Chacham.
I don't know if I want to call them that, because he's saying that they're not such abstract thinkers to reach chachma, meaning these people will not become chachamim, but they will be people who are Shemei Tochachas Chaim. Yeah, that's why he says gam in lo yirchab libo lehasig ala chachma, even though their minds are not abstract enough to reach chachma.
So who would they rather have according to Ralbag? Who would they rather?
He's not saying a preference. He's just saying that they enjoy the company of both. Yeah, and the other question he's not answering is what would they do with people who are into chachma but not into listening to Chachas Chaim?
That's actually exactly.
Yeah. Right. I just don't think that the pasuk is that Rabbeinu Yonah is addressing that.
Okay.
Yeah, Zach.
So one of the things that's coming to mind is this line that is poetically funny and sad, which is don't argue with an idiot because they'll drag you down to their level and beat you with experience.
Right.
So there is something quite frustrating about watching someone run into problems and then insist that all the right answers are the wrong answers and continue to mire themselves in issues and look at wisdom as something that sullies them, and being around people like that, it's so frustrating. It actually does drag you down. It puts you in I would say a state of mind that isn't as primed for Torah learning and for gaining more wisdom. And so you're constantly in this battle of putting yourself back in the right frame of mind because you're seeing these people that are just leading life really abysmally. And so for people who even if they don't understand knowledge, but they have a love for knowledge, they have an appreciation for it. So it's very pleasant, I think, for a chacham who is on that path to be around those people, because then it sets themselves up to acquire more knowledge themselves. It keeps them in a frame of an orientation in a mind that is very conducive for their journey.
Okay, that's a good explanation. Let me translate this into my own words, and you tell me if I'm projecting onto you or not, which is that there is a common value system which is shared by the Chachamim and by the people who desire Tochacha. And it's pleasant for the Chachamim to be in a company that has that value system, even if it's not on the same level. And it really is in contrast to hanging around Amei Haaretz or people who are Ksilim, because they're constantly going to be breaking you as a Chacham out of that framework, just by, at the very least, by distraction of their like displaying a contra Chachma lifestyle, you know? So you're on the same team, even if not everyone is going to aspire to it. You're on team, we love Chachma.
Yeah, I would say that's exactly it. I'd just add one small point, which is, what's the alternative to not loving the Tochachas Chaim? That means that you're rejecting it, so to speak. Which means that it's not just that you're like ambivalent. It means that you're facing a problem. You're not willing to listen to the solution. So you're almost anti-chachma.
Right. Yeah. I think that's good also. Yeah. And again, you see this all over in Mishlei. There's all these psukim that talk about either you are seeking tochacha or you hate tochacha. Like there's not really indifference to it. Yeah, Moshe.
So I thought similar, but more practically.
Yeah.
In that Chachamim who are truth speakers and have all these ideas, naturally you're gonna want to share them with other people. And the fact is that it's very hard to rebuke someone correctly. One of the hardest things is to give tochacha to someone successfully.
Yeah.
So the fact that they had a group of people here who are actually going to be receptive to tochacha is going to be very, very beneficial to them.
Okay, so what? So just what?
As a matter of practicality, it's very hard to find people or even a single person who will be capable of receiving the chacham.
Right. So I agree with what you're saying. I guess the thing I still don't feel like I'm hearing an answer to is what do they get out of it? What do the chachamim get out of it? Like, in other words, it is nice when you give tochacha and the person is receptive, but this sounds like it's saying more. It sounds like they actually enjoy the company.
Can I jump on the bandwagon with him?
Yeah.
Is that this is what I got from what he said, so I'm not like adding a new idea, just I heard it. Is that there is a difference between understanding an abstract idea and articulated knowledge, meaning the ability to take that abstract idea and turn it into words.
Right.
And if turning it into words hurts the people around you, you're just not going to do that, and it's not going to be as perfected knowledge. But if you have speaking that those words, so then you're able to elevate.
That's a good idea. In other words, I don't know if this is what Moshe was saying, but I like this idea, which is that Chachamim, what do they like? They like Chachma, right? And what kind of Chachma do they like? Perfected Chachma, right? So if you have ideas that are abstract, there's only so far you can get without translating it into the real world, you know? And Chachamim enjoy, and you can only do that with someone who's receptive to it and seeking it, you know? It'd be almost as if someone said, I like thinking about teaching, but I would like to answer questions about teaching in a practical way. So I'm going to create a WhatsApp group where people can join it and we can actually talk about teaching. But honestly, that is why I like that, because I can think about education all day long, but until someone presents a real world dilemma and then we could talk it out in the particulars, my chachma is lacking, you know? So that's a good idea. Yeah, AB.
Also, a lot of times when people don't understand, they ask questions.
Right.
Welcome the questions to get them to think.
Yeah, so that was actually my first instinct was the Rambam in Talmud Torah at the end of chapter 5. Hatalmidim mosifim chachmas harav umarchivin libo. The Talmidim increase the wisdom of the Rav and expand his mind. Amru chachamim harbe chachma limadati mechaverai Yeser mirabosai umitamida yesmikulan. I learned a lot of chachma from my peers more than from my teachers, and from my students more than all of them. Ukshem she'etz katan madlig es hagadol, just as a small piece of kindling ignites a large fire, or a bigger piece of wood. Kach talmid katan mechadid es harav. So too an inferior talmid sharpens the rav to the point until he brings forth through his questions wondrous chachma. And I think that just because this guy, the Ozen Shamas Tuchachas Chaim, in other words, he may not reach the level of a chacham, but he's probably going to be able to ask good questions, because you need that in order to be able to implement the tochacha, like at least to implement the tochacha of a chacham, Yeah, Ezra and then Zach.
I think like I'm also kind of viewing it like a practical example of this.
Yeah.
Like a metaphor almost.
Yeah.
Be, like if you play a game,
Yeah.
Magic Gathering or chess or something. Obviously you want to play against someone at your skill level so that you can like hone your skills better,
Right.
Get challenged, and you can like try to overcome obstacles.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't say no to like a training session with someone who's like way worse than you.
Right.
Where you can like practice your skills, and you're probably not going to be challenged on the same level, but you're still going to be, I don't know, trying different openings. I don't know. Magic Gathering.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
So you're not going to get the same pushback. Like
Right.
if you're giving tochacha to someone, you're not going to get pushback. You're still
Right.
going to be able to like practice.
I don't see. I hear what you're saying. I don't know if that really works with what AB is saying or with what Zach is saying that Moshe is saying. Because what we're saying here is there's something that you can't get, that you can only get from someone inferior,
Right.
Which is what,
Yeah.
Yeah. You're okay. You are saying different. Okay. I was.
No,
Yeah. Okay.
So you get validation in a nutshell, or more of like validation. I mean, like you have a concern, you have knowledge that you want to convey to other people, and if people who are receptive of it makes you feel good about it.
I don't think so.
That's what it sounds like.
I don't know. I don't think that's. I don't think the chachamim need validation from non-chachamim.
Oh, this is chachamim are tzaddikim.
Yeah, I don't think the type of chacham that he's describing needs that validation. And besides, the real validation is going to come from these people who are like actually in the chachma game. Yeah, Zach.
So, well, two things. One is just a side note that you're reminding me of my love for Rabbeinu Yonah, which I got from your Mishlei shiur.
Nice. Yeah, Rabbeinu Yonah is a good good Mishlei learner. Yeah.
So you kind of inspired me to level up the idea a little bit, because as you were saying, connecting it to that idea about teachers learning from students, I was like, I like that connection, and it made me think of a just like to amp up the idea we were saying already about how they benefit by being able to articulate their ideas to them, and having that willing audience. I'd say we can even say further that there is a format of knowledge that is most ideal. Actually, I got this from the halacha that we go according to the majority, and in Sanhedrin, which is like a strange concept. Like, why in Sanhedrin do we go according to the majority when everything is really logic based, and like we can have a situation where everyone says this guy is the smartest, but yet we go with the majority that's less smart than him, and it's like kind of bizarre for such a logic oriented system. And so my understanding of this is that it's not a quantitative halacha, but a qualitative one, and that it's teaching us a halacha about the nature of truths, that even though we have Elu Devilikim Chaim, and we have multiple competing truths, that each truth might be purified or developed to a greater extent. And the way we can measure that is you take the best and brightest of minds of the generation, you say, which idea amongst them is most transferable between them, meaning that they're able to get more minds on board.
Wait, I'm going to pause you for just 1 second, just because in the interest of time, can you bring it to the pasuk?
Yes, so the pasuk is a microcosm of that mechanism, where they are able to take an idea that maybe they understand, but when they articulate it first time to someone else, they don't understand it. And so by being able to work that idea multiple times again and again, gaining the understanding of those people around them that are not chachamim, so that is a way of purifying the quality of that idea. Until it's now an idea that's not just accessible by the uber chachamim, but it's an idea that's so perfected even the regular people can access.
Right.
Percent.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So that is another variation on the approach of it refines their chachma. But in terms of if that reminds me of that Einstein barmaid quote, right? No physical theory is worth much if it cannot be explained to a barmaid. Like if the chachamim can reach even non-chachamim through this, then that's the measure of a good idea. Yeah.
So I like what Zach's saying. It's an idea, but I don't think Rabbeinu Yonah is saying that.
Yeah.
Because it says "V'gamim lo yarkib lo libo lahasik el chachma."
Well, I think Zach is basing his interpretation off of that, which is that meaning, or the way I would read that, stam, but also in line with Zach's idea, is even if they can't not reach the level where they are operating as chachamim, they still are able to hear what the chachamim are saying. Now, I think you could also read it the other way, where no, they can only hear the tuchacha, they can't hear the other stuff. But yeah, I think that's the opening for Zach. All right, I'm gonna say one more idea on the Rabbeinu Yonah, and then we'll move on. So I don't know if this is what Rabbi Moskowitz said. I can't remember, and I couldn't find the shiur, but I feel like this is what he would say. Okay, and this is kind of similar to Zach's first idea, which is like this: in Judaism, as I understand it, okay, we don't care about knowledge per se. We care about knowledge insofar as it's real to you. Okay, so we don't have this idea of just being involved in abstract knowledge, like as an intellectual game. We care about chachma because of reality, and because it affects everything, and so the thing is that what the chachamim are doing, they may be involved in abstract areas of chachma, but they care about truth as a reality and as the Ratzon Hashem. And what they see in these other people who are not chachamim but who can listen to chachma, they see that they care about chachma insofar as it's real to them. In other words, they want to live according to chachma, and the chachamim are involved in the abstract dimension of chachma, but it's the same passion, and I'll quote the anecdote that I always quote, and I'm thinking about it because we're almost at Rosh Hashanah here, is again, to me, like one of the epitomes, and I realize I'm being Don Kafchova here, but for illustrative purposes, like the person who I used to see on Rosh Hashanah, that during shofar, he was sitting there with the Reb Chaim on Nezikin, and to me, that's like the epitome of what we are not relating to Chachma for. In other words, if you can't put down your Reb Chaim, it's great to love Reb Chaim, but if you can't put it down to partake in the mitzvah that occurs once a year of, Remez Yeshbo, Raman, insert Raman, so there's some disconnect there. Like we're not just involved in a chachma like intellectual fest, like another example is one of the rabbis that was instrumental in bringing our family to Judaism is Rabbi Lapin, who was raised in South Africa, and he said when he was a young boy, his father took him on Shabbos on a walk, and they saw these guys, these old men who were sitting on their porch on Shabbos learning Gemara and smoking cigarettes, and these were people who had yeshiva training. They loved the learning for intellectual stimulation, but they were not involved in the system, and he said, I don't remember the exact line that he said his father told him, but he said like something like that is the opposite of Torah Lishma, like I think you could have an idea of Torah Lishma where you're doing it just for the intellectual pleasure, but that's not my understanding of what Torah Lishma is. It's that you're drawn to truth, to emes and tzedek, like chachma and tzedek, and that those are two sides of the same coin. There's the theoretical involvement and there's the practical involvement. There's ladas chachma umusar, right? That's the purpose of Mishlei here. And so these chachamim are primarily involved in the chachma, but they also are involved in the musar insofar as they give tochacha. And this other guy, the Ozen Shemas Tochachas Chaim, is involved in the musar, in incorporating the chachma into their life. So it's the same value system. It's a shared value system. That's really what makes friendship is that you share the same value system, even if you're not on the same page. So I feel like that's what Rabbeinu Moskowitz would say, or has said. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to a different interpretation. Okay, there are so many to choose from. I wanted to do the Malbim had an interesting thing, and not in your packet. Malbim says, so he connects it to the previous puzzle, but I actually don't think we need that. He says, we do need to read it though. So it talks about the light of the eyes, which I think we had to talk about this about, they thought that sight worked by your eyes shooting out light, and then Shmua Tova Tadashin Atzim. So he says, Ozen Shemak Tochachas Chaim, Al Tistapik B'Shmiya Tova Mirachok. So an ear that hears the rebuke of life will not be content with listening from afar, or with a good thing that is heard from afar. We might have actually read this before the summer. Rak B'Kerev Chachamim Talin. Rather, it will dwell in the midst of Chachamim. Liros es ha-Chachamim atzman, to see the Chachamim themselves, v'liros ma'aseim, and to see their actions. Okay, ugedola shimusha shel Torah yeser milimuda. Shimush of Torah, which he's defining as hanging around Chachamim, is greater than its learning. Okay, because the seeing of the eye has greater impact than the hearing of the ear. Because the seeing of the eye causes the heart to rejoice. Okay, so this is actually a raya for what I've been telling all the new guys who don't live here, right? I say this to all new guys is. And this is a good, that's member is a good ride for that, is I say that at times I think that spending Shabbos in yeshiva is better for your development than learning in shiur in the morning. Okay, why? Obviously, we're here to learn in the morning, but because seeing Chachamim living and seeing a community of Chachamim and talking with Chachamim and being, can you stop that? And being around Chachamim is going to have an impact on you in shaping your values, in a way that hearing shiur can't. And also he says, you can hear shiur, you can listen to a recording, you could zoom in or whatever, but you can't substitute for the being around Chachamim in an environment of Chachamim on the day-to-day. So that's I have not actually looked at this member in context. Gado shimusha shel Torah yoser milimuda, though, is saying that. And I'm totally willing to accept that it's hyperbole. Like, I think actually learning is more important, but it's bringing out this point that there's an impact that the on the psyche, that seeing Chachamim in action gives you that hearing them does not. I think that's a self-explanatory idea, but any questions or comments on that? Okay, who do you want to go to next? Let's go to, should we do a new one? Immanuel Haromi. Okay, so he says like this. Amar ki ha'ozen ha'oheves lishmoa ha'tochachos ha'mavio l'chaye ha'olam hazeh v'chaye ha'olam haba hitalin b'guf ha'anashim ha'chachamim. Okay, so he says, the ear that loves to hear the rebukes that bring you to life in this world and life in the world to come, which, by the way, is a good summary of what Mishlei gives you, right? It's giving you the benefits in this world and in the world to come. It will reside, or it resides in the body of men who are chachamim. Plomar, lo timsa ozen al zos hatchuna rak ba'anashim chachamim. You will only find this quality among people who are chachamim. So this is different than the way we've been reading it, okay? V'nilmod mizeh ki ha'ozen she'eno shamas tochachas chaim timsa b'ksilim shem hefech ha'chachamim. We learn from this, so he's inferring the opposite. This is a good support for our methodology. When you see a pasuk that doesn't state the opposite, you have to construct the opposite out of what the pasuk gives you. You'll find the opposite of this in the ksilim that are the opposite of chachamim. O Yomar, and it gives a second interpretation, or it's telling you ki ha'ishu bal ozen shamas tochachas chaim, that the person who possesses an ear that listens to the tochacha of life, who lo yalin laolam rak imanashim chachamim lishmoa mehem tochachos shel. That ear will only lodge or dwell with the people who are chachamim to hear their tochacha. That second part is more standard, but I'm kind of interested in this first part here. So what is he saying in this first part? An ear that loves to hear chachamim, you will only find among. Sorry, an ear that loves to hear tochachos chaim, you'll only find among chachamim. So that's opposite Rabbeinu Yonah, right? Rabbeinu Yonah is saying that you can be a non-chacham and the chachamim will be your friend. He's saying that you'll only find this quality among chachamim. So can we define it? Is it a machlokas? And if it is, can we define it? Just to restate it here, right? So Rabbeinu Yonah is saying you can have a person who is an ozen shema tochachas chaim who's not a chacham, and he's saying the only ozen shema tochachas chaim is a chacham.
Depends on how they define chacham as like a spectrum or not, or You know, it's hard to know really without knowing.
Yeah, I also don't know his definitions, but yeah, can we get any idea out of it? Yeah.
Spectrum, but I think that he would be defining Chacham differently than Rabbeinu Yonah.
Right.
Yonah would be defining Chacham as someone who's able to grasp the ideas.
Right.
And he's saying a Chacham is someone who wants to hear the ideas.
Yeah, I think what he is doing, what I was saying about the idea of Rabbeinu Yonah from Rabbi Moskowitz, about someone who values Chachma insofar as it is reality, and therefore is interested in the theoretics and interested in the practical. I think he's saying that is a Chacham, meaning if you are either you are a Chacham who is involved in Chachma and desires to hear Tochacha, or you're a Ksil who hates Chachma and rejects Tochacha, you know? Whereas Rabbeinu Yonah is making that division of there is a theoretical involvement in Chachma of like Shaila and Tshuva, even use those words, you know, and Haskalah, like being maskil, you know, and then the other one, yeah.
According to, what's his name, Immanuel?
Yeah, Immanuel, yeah. No.
I don't know.
Yeah, he was never the mayor of Chicago, hundreds of years before.
It doesn't make, like, it sounds like what he's saying is that, you know, like he's defining Chacham as like, okay, if you're willing to listen to rebuke, then you're you know, that is a Chacham.
Yeah.
Kind of makes more sense to, you know, because I think that is the first step to acquiring a Chachma, you know, like that is the initial step. But Rabbeinu Yonah is saying that, like, you know, like if you take rebuke, you still won't necessarily reach that level of intellectual.
Right.
No, which I don't necessarily agree with.
Okay, but you know who else says it's the first step? Shlomo. Yiras Hashem Rishis Das, Chachma u'Musar Evilim Badru, right? That the fear of Hashem is the beginning of knowledge. Chachma and Musar fools scorn, right? And so, I mean, we're not learning that here, but like we don't learn Rabbeinu Yonah on this right now. But yeah, that's the first. In other words, the hatred of the scorning of Chachma and Musar is going to preclude you from being involved in the type of knowledge that the Torah wants. Okay, let's do another one. Let's do a pshat one, which we didn't do yet. Is Metzudas David? Okay, just very very simply, I think, and maybe we actually have already learned this. That's on the other page. Yeah. Ozen shema tochacha shemas. Ozen asher tishma hatochacha hamevia chayim. So an ear that hears or listens to tochacha that brings life. Sofa tiyeh karuch achar chachma. That really intrigues me, right? I know karuch literally means wrapped, right? Its end, it's going to be wrapped around chachma. V'talin b'kerev chachamim lishmoa dvar chachma, and it will it will persist. He learned it will persist among chachamim to hear a principle of chachma. Similarly, did I include the Ralbag in the back of the packet? The very back. Yeah. Okay. So I think Ralbag also, if I remember correctly, says something like this. Let's just read the Ralbag really quickly. Ozen shamas. Okay, so this is slightly different actually. We'll read it anyway. Ear that hears the rebuke of life. That it accepts musar in the apprehension of chachma, which is the life. Now I'm going to interject here, and I'm very familiar with Ralbag's style. I think he means here abstract ideas in science and metaphysics, because he, I think, is talking about eternal life, and the only ideas that give you eternal life are ideas, truths about reality itself. So in other words, he's not learning this as tochacha in decision making. Musar b'hasagas hachachma. I don't know what he means by that, but like I think in order for this to work out for the Ralbag, it needs to be some form of chachma that actually gives your soul eternal life. That's why I was associating that it will guide him to become wise and to stand among the chachamim. And then he gives another interpretation. Or it already is lodging among the chachamim to learn their chachma. So let's just take this very, very broadly. Plain shot. If you listen to tochacha, you will become a chacham. Okay, so question is, what's up with that? Especially given Rabbeinu Yonah, that not everyone gets there, which I don't think that's a real question. But like, how does listening to tochacha make you a chacham? And I think the reason why I'm curious about the Ralbag here is maybe it's a certain kind of musar that you have to say. Yeah.
Well, further Ralbag, I don't think it's specific, but it seems like he's talking about like sort of methodology and how to think properly. I think if you
okay.
methodology of thought, then you're
Right.
going to know how to think properly. And all.
Okay, so that's a good commercial for Mishlei here, right? Which is that I happen to believe, and again, Rabbi Moskowitz says this also, is like, Rabbi Moskowitz will always say, like, there's more abstract chachma in a single Tosfos than there is in all of Sefer Mishlei, but the process of analyzing Mishlei teaches you all the same skills of asking questions and defining ideas and like application of ideas and all of the list that I just shared. This was on your dad's list of not green tea. Oh yeah, Rabbi Fader and Rabbi Zimmer came up with this list of all of the benefits of learning Gemara: deductive thinking, inductive thinking, definition, categorization, drawing careful distinctions, isolated core issues by separation of essence from accidents, differentiating between questions and refutations, holding complex sets of facts in your mind, maybe not in Mishlei, probing questions, using step-by-step thinking to arrive at answers, methodological thinking. I don't know what the overlap is with one of these, applying rules and formal systems, careful textual analysis, unification, theory testing, thorough investigation of all relevant information, looking for clues to help solve problems, builds creativity and intuition, and then applying this thing to various areas of life. Yeah, so all of these things you do get in a small, or in not a small way, in a localized way through Mishlei. Gemara is more raw training because you're doing this a lot higher frequency and a lot more depth, but you're training your mind through Mishlei, and that can get you to become a chacham. I think it's a good shot.
Rabbi even said it in one of his, I think, methodologies.
Yeah.
That like he a guy. He prefers someone who is not necessarily like the most abstract thinker in the beginning, but he was able to use the methodology of thinking.
Yeah.
He'll get there
right.
more than like someone who's just naturally smart.
Okay, before we end, let's just do a quick summary. I'm not going to summarize all the ideas, but we had Rabbeinu Yonah, who says that if you're not a chacham, meaning you can't be involved in that high level of analysis that the chachamim that characterize the chachamim, they will still enjoy your friendship because of your love of hearing tochacha. And we gave several possibilities that at the end of the day, either I think the two categories we had are it's a shared value system, either like Zach was saying or like I was saying that it's reality, or the other approach is that the chachamim get some benefit from you. Either it brings their chachma to fruition, or it clarifies it, or they have you're going to ask good questions and they're going to hear that. So that was Rabbeinu Yonah. Then we had Immanuel Haromi, who I just forgot. What did we say about him?
He was only with chachamim and he won't be with non-chachamim.
Oh, right. In other words, that this is a quality of a chacham, and there we just said that is a true chacham who's interested in knowledge of reality will desire tochacha and chachma. And then we had Metzudas David, which is what we just theorized from Ezra, which is that, or Ralbag, that you're going to gain the skills that help make you into a chacham. Okay, good haul. Yeah, okay, good first Mishlei session here. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, good Shabbos.